Alright guys, so we got, well, depending on what you want to call it, it's either leg day or nutsack day. The joke is on that, for anyone that doesn't know, it's not that we just enjoy talking about nutsacks, that's true too. But it's the idea that, you know, as far as training goes, hard training and enjoying that hard training thing, you know, it can really only occur on leg day. You know, and so the goal of a leg day, got hair in my mouth, perfect time. Yeah, so the goal of a leg day, you know, one, and honestly for Hunter and I, it's both of us stronger body parts, relatively speaking, to our own bodies. You know, so some of it is, you know, we don't technically need that to grow faster than anything else. Just kind of need them to keep going and pace with everything. But we kind of have that need and that desire of just loving training to train hard. So that's the joke, is we're training our nutsack as well too, to see like, are we actually still training hard? Because as hard as any other body part is, which is still fun and great, it's not the same. Yeah, nothing compares to legs. So today's one will be a very, very complete leg day. And then also two is gonna have a component of, for sure, some hard training in there, taking some sets as far as we can. And then we'll just kind of figure what kind of volume as we go along. So just the order of today, Hunter always likes to start with calves, which I do as well too, or sometimes I like to do as well too. So this is why it'd be a great complete leg workout for most people, because we're gonna go probably in the opposite order that a lot of people do, which ends up, you know, you get the category of some people that never train legs, and so they just look like idiots. So there's that category, which I'm not even gonna address. Yeah, they got different issues we're not gonna address with this video. Then you get some people, and I used to be in this category, where you start to love training legs hard, but it's just all quads. And so like when I started to go up, I first had just the big ass quads and a big ass too. But I didn't really have much going on in calves. I didn't have much going on with hamstrings. So at some point in time, I had to switch my mentality where I could still get just as much out of quads, putting them a little later in the workout, but start prioritizing calves and start prioritizing hamstrings. So that's the sequence we'll go in today. Some calves, we'll go straight into hamstrings, then we'll hit some heavy quad stuff, and we'll do a little bit of back and forth after that of a little bit more hamstrings and a little bit more quads. Some walking lunges in there as well too. So again, if you're looking for complete leg development, literally calves, hams, quads, adductors, glutes, this is gonna be the workout to do it. So it should be a good one. And again, this is kind of setting the baseline. You know, Hunter and I are on very similar pages for leg training, which we like a lot of the same exercises and we like some of the same sequencing. So this will be also kind of figuring out what's going to be Hunter's baseline as far as where we're starting with his leg workouts for his off season. So again, the only thing that will be kind of maybe change over time is volume. You know, we'll definitely probably keep volume, even relative to low volume, a little bit lower today, because at the end of the day, you know, it's all about what's the appropriate stimulus to produce a result. So if we did, you know, 3 or 4 working sets, legit working sets on every exercise, we'd probably be crippled for 2 weeks. So again, it'd probably be 1 or 2 hard sets on most exercises here, play it a little bit by ear, and then we'll just take it from there and see where it goes. Things that you have to use on this right though, most importantly, is the thigh pad. So sometimes they even say use your training partner, and I'll show you when he gets in. Nothing necessarily needs it on this one, but to hold the weight down a little bit so you can pin the thigh pad as tight as possible. So that's really the key, is pinning that thigh pad as tight as possible. So especially when you start the curl, you actually feel like you're pushing up into that thigh pad to start. And as you finish, even if you don't have a seatbelt, you've probably seen us do seatbelts, use your hands to push into the thigh pad. And if you're doing that right, that'll keep your hips still, that'll keep your thighs still, and the only thing will be motion at the knee joint and the lower leg. I always say it's the whole point of this exercise is with a thigh pad. So I have people every once in a while like, oh, I have a seated leg curl at my gym, but it doesn't have a thigh pad. And I'm like, well, that's like the person that made that is just writing permanently for everyone to see for the rest of the time, I'm an idiot. Because a seated leg curl without a thigh pad is like a leg press without a back pad. In my opinion, it's completely useless. I don't really know what you would do with it. So again, if you've got that, use it. If you have any point in time where you're pulling down with your leg and there's motion at your thigh to get up into that pad, that's wasted time and that's wasted range of motion where tension and load is going somewhere else. So again, the benefit here is, especially before, people always say too, is like, oh, they don't want to do leg curls sometimes before squats or before whatever else, they're worried about fatigue and stuff. And I give you, even on lying leg curls, you might fatigue some stuff with your torso and around your hips, just keeping everything still. The benefit of doing this first is you can completely blast your hams. You don't have to fatigue anything else around your hips or your torso, so it's not going to take away from any big output stuff later on. Come on, come on, come on. We got one more, Hunter. Last one, come on. Hard. Go, 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 go. Finish. Attaboy.
Notice how he gets it all the way down and is able to hold it at the farthest point. It's not like he gets it to the farthest point and then it comes up like 3 inches or something. Should be able to completely freeze it at the farthest point.
Come on, come on, come on. We got one, Hunter. Last one. Come on, man. That pain's what you came for. Go. Hard, 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 hard. Finish. Attaboy.
Find the pain. Go. Work. Work. Ooh.
All right, guys, so we've moved on here to safety bar squats with a heel elevation. So a couple of reasons why we do that. Safety bar squats, the way the bar sits, the center of mass is a little bit more like a front squat than a back squat. So when we're squatting, we want to squat for a goal. So our goal is not for hip dominance, but it's more for knee dominance. So we're trying to get a little bit more quads going on, a little less glutes, a little less adductors and hams. So one, the safety bars for that reason, center of mass a little bit further forward as far as the bar is concerned. And also then too, just depending on what you got going on with the shoulder issue, Hunter's got going on, it's a little bit easier to hold the arms here as opposed to getting them back on the bar. And again, all other things being the same, doing a heel elevation, it allows your knee to get further forward than you could just flat on the ground. So sometimes people do that if they have limited ankle mobility, but even if you don't, it's gonna make the movement more quad dominant if you're using it. And by using it, I mean, you have to intentionally push your knees as far forward as you can. And again, all other things being the same, the further your knees are away from the bar path, the more quads involved, and the closer your hips and your spine are to the bar path, the less hips going to be involved, the less your lower back's going to be involved. And then a couple things you can look at. So it's like, well, what are we working on with Hunter? What am I watching for here? Hunter's a very good squatter. The thing that I work on with him is making sure he can feel when his spine starts to move, and as a result, his pelvis starts to move. So again, there's this idea that go as deep as humanly possible, which if you can, I want full knee flexion here. So I want his hamstring touching his calf, so he's getting full range of motion at his quads. But at the same time, I don't want his pelvis pulling out of place and his spine rounding under load. So I'm cueing him to brace his midsection tight. It's really this kind of girdle type feeling of all the muscles of your midsection pulling together. So belly button in, internal, external obliques pulling in, lower back musculature staying tight. And so what I'm telling him when he's going to the bottom, if you could hear me yell at some points in time, is as he goes to the bottom, he should be even tighter in his midsection, because that's when there's the most force pulling his pelvis and pulling his spine out of place. And so you can see a couple reps, the first few warm-up sets, some of it's just a matter of warming up and just getting your body going. But we had the couple where I thought he's sinking a little too low. If you imagine his pelvis as a bowl, you can see the bowl tipping backwards. And so when I said to kind of stop an inch earlier and also cue him to brace a little bit tighter, you see his pelvis stays perfectly level. And again, none of the lower leg musculature as far as quads go crosses over the pelvis, so this motion doesn't help train your legs at all. The only thing it's going to do is make your spine round, and again, rounding your spine, compressing discs like that unevenly under load is probably not a great thing. So that's one of those things. Yeah, so that's one of those things that just takes a little bit of cueing, a little bit of practice. Again, because you'll find people with work ethic like Hunter, they just want to go as deep as possible because it's perceivably harder in a way. But once you kind of find where that bottom is, that gauge, it's equally hard, but again, just kind of in a different way as well too. So just take some practice.
Anecdotally, like he said, you know, a lot of us just try and bury our squats, but it's something I've gotten away from, because if I truly just bury them and I let my pelvis roll, I call it hip wink. Yeah. The next day when I get up, my hips are just shot.
And if you'll see too, if you just, again, what I'm looking at, we're concerned mainly for quads. Yes, a lot of hip musculature is getting trained, but if you look at his quads and his knee joint, his hamstring is pressed into his calf. That's a fully flexed knee. So he's not doing half reps or quarter reps or even stopping at 90 necessarily. He's going until the joint that we're training, again, we're training what quads influence mainly the knee, is that full range of motion. We don't really care about the pelvis or the spine as much. We just want to keep that in a good position so we can get the quads trained full range of motion. So yes, full range of motion, but that's different than full depth necessarily. All right, guys, so one little note on the squats. You'll see where we take the rest of the workout. Got another hamstring movement now. Then we're gonna do some lunges and some hacks. Stuff that's locked in and stable, like so the hamstring stuff, we'll take those to failure and past failure, you know, a good bit past failure. How far and when, Again, a lot of it goes with stability. So the hamstring stuff, those movements are so stable. The way that I look at it is if Hunter can still contract somewhere, then I'm gonna take him through the rest of the rep, because basically I'm fixing where the machine doesn't have that good of a profile, which all that means is it's probably too heavy somewhere and too light somewhere else. So that's why sometimes on leg curls, we'll go, it's like 3 or 4 reps past failure. But in my opinion, if he can tolerate the load somewhere, then I'm just gonna take him through the rest of the range. Again, honestly, just making the machine better more than I'm actually spotting him. Now, with something like a safety bar squat, 99% of the time, I like to just go to basically what I call form failure. So like when I'm going and he's going, we'll stay with each other and stay tight, to the point, honestly, where it's like, you wouldn't really help someone more so is like that bar folds you in half. So literally sometimes, give the guy a bro hug when you're spotting him for moral support. But seriously, just sometimes pulling them tight, pulling the chest up just that much, you're not actually helping with up, you're just helping them brace that bar a little bit. So I say with a big movement like that where there's so much going on, I like to take it more towards form failure. And something, today was the first day back, so Hunter still did 1,000,000 reps there. But overall, I'd like to keep it slightly lower rep range, just for the same reason of there's so much going on. And the benefit of the exercise is how much load that you can have. You know, so I like to keep those generally more maybe the 5 to 8 rep range, and again, keep them just right towards form failure. And then you'll see other places in the workout when we're gonna take it to or slightly past failure. It's gonna be more so a place where it's stable, it's safe. If you hit failure, you just put the stack down and you put the machine down, or even when we're doing lunges, you just toss the bar off of you. Here, if you hit failure and go past it and your spotter's not ready, you fold in half and die, and that's when your training career ends. So just a little something to consider.
Safety squat bar specifically, like you said, that thing will fold you up and give you to where you're like pressing like that, and it's a lower back injury.
Yeah, for sure. So just some things to consider as far as, you know, where you're putting your effort in, and there's different types of effort. There's a time and a place to go past failure, and there's a time and a place, I think, to be a little bit more considerate of staying what I would call form failure. You really just want perfect reps, let the complexity of the movement, and let the load get the job done. So you guys will see on this, it's a kind of a reoccurring theme when we're isolating a muscle, isolating a joint. You know, so we're isolating the knee here, trying to train just the hamstring and knee flexion. For me, the key that I'm looking for, I consider good form, is everything else staying still. So every hamstring curl is a little bit different. Like this machine's an example of, I like the profile, meaning it's a lot heavier at the bottom and lighter at the top, which is nice. I don't like, you know, how steep or how hip flexed it puts you in. And just for the reason that it makes it a little bit harder to keep your hips and keep your thighs still.
Like having a rolly pad.
Yeah, but it's still a good machine. So again, it's just when you're a little bit flatter, sometimes it may be a little bit easier. And so here, if there's a cue, same cue you'd have one that's on flatter, but even more so here, is really drive your thighs hard into the pads and keep that pelvis pulled nice and tight. And I always say, especially for the start of the motion, you want everything completely still. If you're contracting and squeezing through your hamstrings as hard as you can, and at the end of the motion, your pelvis moves a little bit, in my opinion, it's one of those things that's a little bit of a gray area between this idea of perfect form and working really hard, and honestly just not having a machine that's basically perfect. So for me, and the best advice I can give is for how I'll do it, is on my working sets, I don't mind if my pelvis moves a little bit, as long as my focus is still on my hamstrings contracting as hard as I can and taking them for all they're worth. If it ever shifts to the point where you feel your hips or you feel your lower back or something working more than anything else, then that's the point where it might be counterproductive. So same thing here, we're pretty fresh, 2 warm-up sets, leaving a lot of reps in the tank. Gonna go try and find a top set, take it as far as we possibly can. And when I'm spotting Hunter, when he's spotting me, and when you're spotting your training partners at home, the idea is, you know, we got these first reps are perfect. When he's spotting me, obviously with a lot more load, and when we're going past failure, the goal is to try and keep the reps looking perfect. So that's really the goal or the purpose of a spotter, is to take a set as far as you can without compromising form. So if you're just kind of sitting back as a spotter, your person gets stuck, they're struggling, everything's moving around before you're even helping them, you're kind of defeating the purpose. So kind of just pay attention to how I'll spot Hunter, how he'll spot me here. You know, we're trying to make each other work as hard as we can, but at the same time, not get stuck, not get an opportunity where we're gonna have more stuff want to take over a cheat.
Keep it moving.
Yeah. All right, guys, so just finishing with hacks. So honestly, this is such a good exercise. You can put it anywhere in the workout. If you want it to be a main output movement, great. I've been recently liking putting it at the end because everything's so shot. It's extremely stable. So we can still basically take our quads for everything they're worth without having to worry about dying. Because literally, especially with this machine, the bottom, we're already taking it essentially to the bottom of the range of motion, you know, kind of bottoming it out. where we're at. So it's worst case scenario, even if your spotter can't get you up, if you completely fail, you just do a crawl of shame out of the bottom. So as far as trying to bias quads, two things you'll notice here is, one, I'm trying to put my feet as low as I possibly can on the platform. The lower your feet, all other things being the same, you're gonna potentially bias a little bit more quad as opposed to hips. And then for me, I'm also taking a pretty wide stance, letting my knees go out a little bit. Is that gonna bias my adductors and get them involved a little bit more? Possibly, yes. But the other thing it does is it lets me get more range of motion out of my hips before they run out, so I can get my knee to where I want it. Because again, what I'm trying to do is get full knee flexion, get my hamstring on my calf. If I have this very narrow stance, my hip range of motion basically runs out right here, and I can't get any lower, I can't get to that full knee flexion. Or if I go a little bit wider stance and open up, I can now get up here, and in turn, I can get a little bit more knee flexion. So it's one of those things where if you know the goal of the movement, feel free to manipulate everything else to kind of get there. So I don't mind taking my hips a little bit wider, even if it's training them a little bit different, just so I can get my quad where I want it to go. So next I'll tell you a little something when Hunter's going about the bands, why we have bands set the way that we do. So we've also got a reverse band set up here. And it's, if you guys watched our chest video already, it's for the same concept. For pressing motions, how much weight you do on a hack is always determined by how much you can tolerate at the bottom. It is the hardest at the bottom, so that's your limiting factor. So again, I don't care what the actual number is, but let's say hypothetically, Hunter can do 5 plates at the bottom. Well, he's capable of doing 6 or 7 plates at the top. So that's what the reverse bands do. You'll see the top half of the motion, they're not even touching. So he's using all this weight at the top half, and then they're deloading it at the bottom. So again, the key is the discrepancy. I want a big difference between the weight at the bottom and the weight at the top. Because ultimately, if you're not using bands in some capacity, you're under training the top half of the range. You could use more load there. So again, do you do it from the bottom? Do you do it from the top? Doesn't make a massive difference. Some of it's a matter of convenience. They don't have the bottom peg set up here. The top's very easy to set up on this one, so we set it up that way. And again, it's the same concept for both. So again, the point of it basically is to have a load that matches what your body is capable of doing through the entire range of motion. So just as hard at the top as it is at the bottom.